Welcome to Prayer and Prozac. I am Shari Ponder, and this is the podcast to help you understand that faith and therapy can coexist together. Or can it? Let's see now as we attempt to challenge your minds and open your hearts. Welcome back to Prayer and Prozac. I'm your host, Shari Ponder, and we have our co-host, Michelle Nathalia.
Hi, everyone.
And Kieyana Thomas.
Hi, everybody.
Yay. Now, even though I am trying to be of good cheer, I have to be honest and tell you that this has been a very, very heavy week. We had planned to record on a completely different topic and decided in pre-production that we would focus on what had happened with Ahmaud Arbery. In the 4 or 5 days before we got to this point to actually record, we had several more violent attacks against people of color, African Americans. And so it's been a very hard week. It's been a very sad week. For me, even as clergy, I've been pretty upset. I've been angry and trying to process through what that looks like representing the kingdom of God, being honest and authentic with how I feel, and then also what that looks like for what we need to do in the way of prayer and Prozac. And Prozac in this case might even mean writing laws, writing legislation, but all the things that relate to prayer and Prozac and in this moment. So let's recap. You'd have to be under a rock, but even still it's possible because we have kind of been under a rock, under quarantine. But let's talk about the people that have been affected. Kieyana, do you want to fill everybody in on what happened with Ahmaud Arbery?
Yes. So, as I was reading, and it's all over social media, a description of what happened. On February 23rd, Ahmaud Arbery, who was 25, was jogging in a Brunswick neighborhood when Gregory McMichael and his son Travis chased him down in a white pickup truck and murdered him. Later telling police that they thought he looked like the suspect in a series of recent break-ins in the area.
And so Ahmaud is a Black man who runs, and he's jogging for his health. This is his Prozac. He gets it out. This is how he helps with his own mental health. He's jogging and being physically fit. And two men who believed, for no other reason to me other than the sake that he was a person of color running down the street, that they would take the matter into their hands and assume that he was a criminal and shoot him down. Right. This really shook us again, but I think the frustrating part is not even so much that it happened, but additionally that probably nothing would have happened had the video not been released on social media or to the press.
Right.
So the anger, the righteous indignation, some of the frustration is the killing, yes, but then the lack of regard for justice by those who are supposed to provide justice. Then we had Breonna Taylor.
Yes.
Yes, please go ahead.
So Breonna Taylor was a 26-year-old Black woman living in Louisville, Kentucky. She worked as an IT and wanted to become a nurse. But on March 13th of 2020, Louisville police officers broke into her home, citing a drug warrant for someone who wasn't there or who did not live there. She was shot at least 8 times, while in her apartment. And actually, in more of my research, I found out that the person that they were looking for had actually already been in custody.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So for me, it's kind of upsetting because I'm 26 and, you know, a lot of the people that have been affected by this, who have been killed by police officers, you know, they've either been younger than me or older than me. And we've shared the similarity of both being Black, but this being so close in age, these two people, Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, being so close in age, really hit home for me.
Absolutely. I can see that the crazy thing is, and we're going to talk more about this week, it's close to your age. And then I feel like George Floyd,
mm-hmm.
I don't know how old he was.
George Floyd was 46 years old, and he has a 6-year-old daughter. And that's probably more recent as we record this. That's probably the more recent incident, you know, right under Arbery and Breonna, just the reckless deaths. And George Floyd was a detained, already handcuffed on the ground with a white police officer, Derek Chauvin, with his knee in his neck. 46 years old, dead, while he was saying, "I cannot breathe." Very familiar as to what happened here in New York several years ago.
Yes, and so we have every age. We have women, we have men, we have millennial, we have elders, we have baby boomers. We have, like, no one is left out of this. No one is left out of this. And then the same week as George Floyd, we had Christian Cooper. Now, Christian Cooper did not pass away, thank God. But in my opinion, this Polly Park lady who called the police on him, it was attempted murder. So with Christian Cooper, he's a bird watcher. And there are dogs in the area. This woman has a dog. He's not on a leash. He asked her to follow the rules, asked her to put her dog on a leash so that he can watch his birds. He has a dog treat. She's like, "Get away from me. If you don't get away from me and stop filming." Now, he was wising us because clearly us videoing, although it does not always help, it is absolutely the proof and evidence that we need. Right. Even back to Rodney King, we've seen people get assaulted and nothing happens. But at least with the power of social media, we can have some public outrage. And so this man is bird watching. The woman is upset. And the thing is, y'all, she says, "I'm going to call the police and tell them that an African-American man is threatening me." That set me off in ways you will not believe. And she gets on the phone. And if you watch the video, you see her on the phone. And the cops are not giving her the response she needs. So she goes into the straight actress mode. You can even hear it in her voice. "Oh, this African-American man, he's coming to desert, he's threatening me." And I'm like, wow. And you see this guy filming and nothing happens. He leaves, she leaves. She's choking the hell out of her little dog. And essentially the cops come and there's no arrest made. The problem for me again is she needs to go to jail. She needs to be sued. This is attempted murder. If you call the police and you're threatening a person with calling because you're Black, and given Breonna, Ahmaud, George, that cops will come shooting. The moment she made that call was attempted murder. So how is it that how can we deal with this? Because this is frustrating. This is angering. This is a spiritual war. This is physical war. Y'all are the therapists. What is this doing for our mental health? as Black people, as people of color? What is it doing? Because I am completely outraged. I know that this mental health definitely affects us. Michelle, please shed some light on this for me.
Yeah, so let me jump in real quick and say this too. What she did in the park with Christopher Cooper is she weaponized his Blackness. She didn't say, I'm going to call the cops and say there's a man with a gun threatening me or there's a man with a knife threatening me. She made it very clear in the core of her whiteness, understanding her privilege, that she can simply call and say, an African American man is threatening me. And that is enough. She weaponized his Blackness. And that is the reality that many of us are living with here in America. You know, one of the clips that's on our Facebook page, Prayer and Prozac, that I love you all to follow, James Baldwin said to be a Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious is to be in a rage almost all the time. When you consider this, when you consider being relatively conscious, knowing that my Blackness can be weaponized, that my son's Blackness can be weaponized, that my daughter's Blackness, that my skin color makes me a danger without a weapon. Yeah, our mental health this month, this week, this year, the past decade, the past 200 years, it's compounded. It's compounded with every other thing that white people have to deal with. Bills, marital problems, relational problems, COVID-19. But then on top of it, guess what, everybody? We are dealing with the fact that we are Black in America. The fact we are Black in America. And Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, where she was an awesome woman, psychiatrist, an African-American woman. She was published the ISIS papers that was a spin out of her 1970 essay, The Cress Theory of Color Confrontation and Racism. And Dr. Welsing said it clearly and profoundly when she said, you cannot discuss Black mental health without discussing white supremacy. And this was something she said back in the 60s and the 70s, and it's still very true. We cannot discuss the mental health of Black people in America without discussing white fragility, white people feeling threatened by the existence of Black people. Now, Dr. Welsing has an entire paper, The Cress Theory of Color Confrontation and Racism, and she wrote the ISIS papers talking about white people feeling inferior. And because of their sense of inferiority, because of their sense of looking around and seeing that the world is more brown and Black, that there's this innate push for them to want to stay dominant. And domination means death to us, to anything and anyone that threatens them. So to be relatively conscious in America and be Black in America, you have to be constantly on guard. And that does mess with your mental health. That does compound your mental health. You have to think about everything else and plus think about, how do I stay alive? How do I teach my children to stay alive? When I step out here, what does my life mean?
And so for us, it is, what you're saying is a large portion, or according to Dr. Welsing, or all of our anxiety and stress and fear is essentially due to white mental health. So the mental health of our white brothers and sisters and their desire for supremacy, not all, but some, innately impact everything that keeps us balanced mentally, because of constantly having to be reminded that we are, or told that we are, or through systems reinforcing that we are less than.
And we're a threat. We're a threat to their existence when we deal with, when we deal with the climate in America, because even this Officer Derek Chauvin, I don't know how true it is, but there is a circulation of him on Facebook wearing a Make America Great Again cap. So when Dr. Wilson talked about white fragility, and that is not her word, that's mine, that has evolved over
So
the years.
actually, that's Robin DiAngelo is white fragility, the scholar on white fragility.
Right.
Okay.
So that's not Dr. Chris Wilson's terminology, is like you said, Dr. D'Angelo's terminology. But that is essentially what she's talking about, the understanding that there's this sense that I could be overtaken. And again, not all white people, because there are some white allies. As a matter of fact, we need our white allies to speak up. But there is a large segment of society that hold power in their hands that, when you think about the rhetoric of our president of Make America Great Again, when we think about his rhetoric and his words and the things that he speaks out about brown and black people, these people feel like they're empowered enough to go out and do whatever they want to do and engage in behaviors that say and remind us as black people, your life is not worth the same as a white person. And it does compound. And not only does our mental health rely on the supremacy or the white fragility, our mental health is compounded by the fact that we are black. So not only am I fighting for wellness like my white brothers and sisters, I am fighting for wellness because I am now engaging in another war. And that war is knowing that my skin color can be weaponized and my skin color threatens people who have power over me to take my life.
Now, what kind of feelings are we talking about here? Since we're talking about mental health, we're talking about feelings. So for me, I'm angry. I was upset. I was sad. Kieyana, help us unpack that. Because all of us are feeling something. We even started, it was a rough week. Yeah. It's a rough week. It's a hard week. It's a bad week. So for our mental health, what does that look like? What are those triggers? What should we be looking at? How will we know when it's more than just, I'm just pissed?
Yeah. So in mental health, and as therapists, we use a tool called the color wheel. And it has been a hard weekend. So initially everybody thinks, or knows or feels that we're angry, but there is a primary feeling there that is angry. There's a secondary feeling that's under that. And that feeling could be fear. We're fearful of our lives, of our children's lives, of our brothers and our sisters' lives, of our parents' lives. And so that's the secondary feeling. But every color wheel has a root. Every feeling and emotion and a thought that you have, there's a root cause to that. And it's frustration. We're tired. We're frustrated of being targeted, of being killed and murdered. And we're tired. We're frustrated. And the root cause of all that is the frustration.
So do you think that, and we always go to you as our resident millennial, I know how I feel. I'm close, but I'm not quite there. I've heard talks from the baby boomers and the Gen Xers. But what does this look like when every generation is angry as a primary or fearful and are frustrated? What does that look like?
I mean, at this point now, it's manifested into a more physical anger. I don't know if you all saw, but there's been a lot of rioting, a lot of burning down businesses, the Targets, the auto zones, just huge fires. And I haven't seen any police involvement with it. They're kind of like just letting people rage. But I read something today that said we're not trying to post to make people aware. Everyone is aware. Black people are aware that this is happening. Now everybody is just taking it into their own hands. And so it's kind of scary on both sides, because it's like we see the riots, but it's like, what happens after this? Do the riots continue? People, from the most recent situation the police officers were fired. The 4 police officers were fired, but everyone is still raging because it's just not enough. Like, what happens next?
Right, with George Floyd, they were
Right,
fired.
with George Floyd, the police. Mm-hmm.
Sadly, that was a big step.
Right.
Even to have that. So the raging does exist, and rioting has always kind of crept up. And I'm going to tell you what's crazy, though, is that I feel like even the people who wouldn't normally be upset to the point of rioting are getting upset like that.
Right.
Like I don't know. As clergy, and I want Michelle to talk a little bit about metacognition, but even as clergy, I am angry. I'm not fearful, unfortunately, and maybe that's a bad thing. I'm not fearful. My primary is anger, and maybe it's the tertiary is frustration. But I'm very frustrated, and I'm not one that will go out into the streets rioting.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm getting very upset, and it is truly the Holy Spirit that is probably making me think and focus on writing legislation, writing policy, running for something. But that initial kick of the old man, come on, Michelle, the old man, is like, you know what? I can't carry no TV. I wouldn't be riding still and stuff, but I definitely get it.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. Michelle.
So that's a part of that metacognition. So what metacognition is in the field of psychology and even learning psychology, it's about thinking about how I'm thinking. Metacognition psychology includes just the ability so it's the knowledge and the regulation of what I'm thinking, right? So if I'm feeling anger and it's come out of fear, I'm not engaging in metacognition because my first response is, I'm going to burn this down, right? We saw that with the Rodney King's rioting back in the 80s when we were burning down our own community because we were tired and we were frustrated and we weren't thinking. But again, my metacognition.
And also Michael Brown, that happened in Ferguson in my old neighborhoods. Mm-hmm.
That's right. And that's what we typically do. We're angry and we're frustrated and people are looking on like, well, why are they burning down their own community? Because we feel so powerless that our own community doesn't even feel like our community. Because you can come into my community and own me. This ain't my community. You're owning me. So metacognition is that extra step in evolution, right? And we are constantly, as Black people, called to live and I'm tired of it. We are called to live on a higher plane. And then when we don't achieve this higher plane of metacognition, of thinking about how I'm thinking, about sitting down and thinking about how I'm feeling. Am I feeling angry? What is the root of this? Is it hurt? Is it pain? No other race has to do this. No other race has to do this. I am on Facebook and my white friends are talking about the cake they made and the graduation ceremony.
So right.
And
You're so right.
They're talking about things that, damn it, I want to talk about. But I'm thinking about the way I'm thinking because I'm about to send my son to Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Yes.
So I'm asked to now function on a higher level of evolutionary mental health. And damn it, I don't want to. I want to be ordinary, but I can't be. And if I don't think about thinking, I'm going to be out there burning it down too in the streets.
Wow.
That's metacognition. Folks, Black folks, we are called to think about the way we're thinking. If you are frustrated and if you are heavy and you are afraid, I encourage you, reach out to us on IG, on Facebook, get with us. Let's open up a individual conversation because we cannot continue to suffer in silence. And thinking about the way you're thinking, ask us to be a little bit more evolutionary than our white brothers and sisters and those counterparts. Because at the end of the day, I don't get to think about the graduation cake I'm about to order. I'm thinking about sending my son off to Kalamazoo, Michigan, and what that means for my 6'1" son.
Yeah. That's good. And I'm so glad that you mentioned other responses because I have friends who were fellow seminarians. Many are conscious, but some, were posting pictures about their dogs, like you said, cakes and recipes. And I'm thinking, are you serious right now? Amos, 5, and what is it, 5:34, 5:24, says, but let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. And so for me as clergy, I'm not only pissed as a Black woman who, like you, has male friends and siblings and things of that nature, but I'm also frustrated with my white clergy counterparts. I actually saw 3 or 4 posts on Instagram yesterday, and I was really upset. Some of them in our groups, we started with Arbery, with Ahmaud Arbery, and they were like, well, maybe if he had just done what the police officer said. Well, I'm like, well, so now it's his fault? And they weren't even police officers. They were vigilantes, if you will, just men in the neighborhood. Maybe if he had done what they said. And I'm like, no, because now you're saying it's his fault that he's dead when they had no right to make this assessment of him. Or they're like, well, how was this race? This isn't racism. And I'm thinking, how do you not see that racism, systemic racism, is a sin? And just like Amos said, we are called to fight for justice and righteousness, period, point blank. And if you are a clergy person and you still don't get that, that is so problematic for me. But I did turn into on Instagram Levi Lusko, and he is at Fresh Life Church. And he began by saying that he could not speak about racism because he's a white guy. And I'm telling you right now, and I posted this, I was about to unfollow him, because if you are a white and you are an ally, you are one of the most qualified to speak up and to speak to your own counterparts. But he went on to say that it was a sin. He called it out. He called it what it was. And I was like, much respect, because we're all in this together. And you have to be a beacon of light and a beacon of hope. And you have to share the burden. You cannot, as clergy, particularly non-Black clergy, sit back and watch these things happen and not speak up about this and speak against this, because Jesus spoke against this. Jesus was for the marginalized and Jesus was for the oppressed. And the Black liberation theologist James Cone said, you cannot speak about God without starting with aligning with the marginalized as a starting point. If you don't do that, it is not Christianity that you're talking about. So if you are out here and you are not, and you're still talking about cakes, and you still preaching about, I don't know, the joy of love, yes. But the love, the hardness of the love is being an advocate and being an ally. And so for me, y'all was pissed, and y'all got to help me, because I was like, how do I turn the other cheek? I don't want to turn the other cheek. How do I turn the other cheek? And friends, I have to tell you that my beautiful sisters said that this is a part of my calling, and that I need to be reminded that although the word says the kingdom of God suffers violence and the violence take it by force, that I must find ways to turn the other cheek. I am praying. I am praying. I am praying. We have always prayed. And I believe God is answering prayers as it relates to civil rights. It is an uphill journey, but the Prozac then must become, for Shari, I'm speaking to myself now, not to get as pissed and upset as everyone else. I mean, I can anger, but I need to not look at ways of fighting back. I need to be more consumed with, and I have been, writing policy. I believe that people who make false phone calls, like the lady Polly Park chick who did for Christian Cooper, they need to go to jail. They need to be sued. They need to be fined. They're wasting taxpayers' dollars. And then I think right now, the church being quarantined has a historical opportunity to use its power in this new normal or next normal to be what it used to be, which was in the streets, fighting for justice, in the courthouses, through law, through protest, through voting. And I think this is somewhere where our prayer and Prozac will map back onto each other if we're active. If we are, as clergy, are just still sitting back, twiddling our thumbs and praying for personal salvation. Don't get me wrong, we do need personal salvation, but it is also the social salvation. we have to be concerned with social justice, period, point blank. Any thoughts on how we continue?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The church has to take a forefront in it. You know, Dr. King said it. One of the most segregated times in America is Sunday morning. And it has to stop. It has to. Jesus was about social justice. And if you don't know that about him, then you've missed the very core of your religion. If you call yourself a Christ follower, then you have missed the very core of your religion. Jesus Christ was about social justice. That's what he was about. That's what he did. He interacted with those who were marginalized, those who were on the fringes. He called them in. He came for that. And if the church cannot step up and see that, if our white brothers and sisters in church are not calling out the racism, if you're not going home during family dinners and holidays and confronting this behavior, then you're just as much as a part of the problem. You don't get to be indifferent. The times for indifference and the times for turning your face and acting like you don't see. I mean, I tuned into a Zoom session last night that was out of California. And one of the things that a man who was advocating, saying, I want to be an ally, one of the things that he said is that there just is an awareness that a white person can open a newspaper, turn on the TV and hear the rundown of the Aubreys and the Breonnas and the George and the, you know, everyone else, but just cannot have an awareness of or a connection. Well, I don't believe that, and I'm calling that out as a lie from the pit of hell. Because if white folks can fight against a whale being killed, a tiger being killed, a giraffe being killed, a dog crucifying Michael Vick because of dog fighting, if you can empathize for an animal being killed, what does that say about you? If you can open up a newspaper or listen to the news and see a black person dying, and you sit here and say, there's a lack of awareness, the devil is a lie. You better get on your knees and figure out which God you following.
Say that. That's right. That's absolutely right. Kieyana, thoughts here?
I feel like we've had a lot of time to get our outrage out and kind of speak on behalf of what a lot of people are feeling. But I want to bring us back to balance and peace.
Okay, thank you.
And I want to allow everyone to, have some activities on, how we can better balance ourselves and our feelings. And so I want to kind of just talk about mindful meditation and the art of mindfulness. And what mindfulness simply means is just being in the present. And so some things you can do when you feel like you're all over the place and you kind of want to just be centered is some of the basics are just breathing in and out. So when you're breathing out, when you're breathing in,
Kieyana, can you
yes.
do it? Can I get in position? Because I am so hot.
Yes.
Go ahead and do a live one right now.
Okay, so find a comfortable position. You could either be sitting up or laying down. And what you're going to want to do when you're breathing, you're going to want to breathe in your nose and out through your mouth. So when you breathe in, you want to breathe in for a count of, let's just start with 3 seconds. So breathe in 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. You're going to want to hold for 5 seconds. And then you're going to want to release for 7 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's do that one more time. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Release. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So doing this throughout the day can definitely help keep you balanced and can definitely, help release whatever tension that you may be feeling.
Yes, I already feel it. I'm already feeling relaxed.
Yes. Great. Yes, because even when I'm on social media, on Instagram, like when these things are happening, it's everywhere. It's on the news, it's on Instagram, it's on Facebook, it's on Twitter, and it can be a lot. And sometimes you just got to put your phone down and just breathe. Breathe.
Ooh, that's good. Do you recommend, because I feel like this mindful meditation is our metaphorical Prozac right now. I also feel like voting and writing law and being active is a form of Prozac. But with prayer, is it better to pray before or after? I guess maybe after the mindful meditation, just so you can be clear and hear clearly from God. Because I know when I'm angry praying, because I have prayer types of prayer. I'm usually in a good place, like I'm chilling, I'm praying. Other times I have worry prayer where I'm worrying my prayers, like, God, please help me, Jesus. Other times I'm like, oh my God, Lord, do you see this? And so, excuse me, you see this? And so there, for me, different types of stressing my prayers. So I feel like this would be good to do your mindful meditation. We are to pray consistently and pray constantly. The scripture says the effectual fervent prayer of the righteous availeth much. But I'm feeling like mindful meditation is a great place to stop and catch yourself before you pray, so that you can actually hear from God and be a little contemplative, to be open to hear what God is saying, that your next right move should be to fight, so that we don't go out and tear up the streets and get ourselves killed.
Right. And I mean, I definitely agree. There's been times where I've been so frustrated. So I feel like in times when you're, too overwhelmed, you definitely should breathe before you pray. But if you're already in a place of, calmness, praying and then releasing, that also helps bring more clarity as well.
Okay. And so do you and Michelle think that this is how we get our power back? Is this how we get our, in addition to the strength of prayer, in addition to voting and pushing back and standing up and writing law and running for office, is this also a way to get our power back, having these moments for mental health, for positive mental health? And I would imagine if you need real Prozac and a real therapist too, but is this the best way to get our power back, is to, I guess, remain calm or centered?
I definitely think that staying calm is the first step, because sometimes when we're in a sense of rage or confusion, we tend to do things and then think later that we should never did it or regret it. And I definitely think first step. But we definitely have to do the call of action. We definitely have to do our research before we're making our decisions and going and voting, because we're voting and thinking that, oh, this person is great because this is what we heard from this person, or this is what we heard from social media. But we have to do our own research to see if that aligns with our values of who we want to represent us.
Okay, so you're saying it's all even, it's instantaneous and progressive. It's instantly the take back of your mental health and your spiritual health, but then staying in that place to continue to make good decisions, to do the research, to find, make the vote, to write the law. Okay, awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. Any closing remarks, Michelle, before we?
Yeah, and I think one of the things,
breathing.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we want to keep in mind is that you want to acknowledge your emotions. You want to acknowledge your feelings. You want to acknowledge the fears, the heaviness. You want to acknowledge it. And like Kieyana said, once you acknowledge it and once you recognize that it's there, you have to find a place of centeredness, right? So the onus is on us we have to evolve. We have to evolve, because living in rage daily is no good. It's no good for your blood pressure. It's no good for your physical body. It's no good. There's a lot of different physical things that can happen to you if you allow emotions to go unchecked and if you allow emotions to go unheard or unaware. And I agree with you. So there's the metaphorical Prozac is to find out how you can get your own sphere of competence. Do we need to have conversations with our white allies, with our white brothers and sisters? Do we need to call meetings? What can we do? Do we write legislators? Do we start campaigns? And the literal Prozac. And it doesn't have to just be Prozac. If you feel like you are really feeling frustrated, you cannot sleep, there's insomnia, you're losing weight, you're eating too much, check in with yourself, check in with your body. And again, I encourage you to visit our IG page, our Facebook page, reach out to myself, Kieyana, or Shari. Let's open up this conversation.
Amen. Thank you. You know what? You just confirmed that I'm not, I guess, as stressed as I think, because I have not lost any weight at all. It's no meal. So that's clearly I need to continue breathing, and it's going to be all right. Listen, we love you. Thanks for listening to us. Continue to, as Michelle said, by contributing your questions and your commentary to our Facebook group, Prayer and Prozac, and also following us on Instagram, Prayer and Prozac. Kieyana goes live on Fridays, and Michelle drops information twice a week. So please stay tuned. I agree with Michelle. I think we're going to do a part 2 to this. We are going to see if we can connect with some of our white allies and see, what that looks like. We are all in it together. We're praying for you. We love you. And above all else, we are asking you to continue to seek balance. Thank you for joining us.